Right, we're recording now. Okay, that's given an opportunity for a few more people to join as well. Okay, so welcome everybody to our fourth, I think it is, session. Many apologies for delaying by a week. We had some schedule issues and we had some annual leave, and we just ran out of time to prepare for last week. So I think a few people might have been put off by the rescheduling. But as I say, we're recording it, so it will get shared with everybody who can't make it today anyway. So as I say, welcome to today's session on overlay design. Hopefully this is, for those of you who've used MX Renew in the past, this is to show some of the tools that are available to do that sort of work. And for those of you who haven't used MX Renew, it should be of interest for future overlay projects that you might have. The agenda is going to be, let me get rid of the chat. As per usual, we're doing a session on overlay design. If we get time, I'll just show you a little brief review of drawings on the data that Mark's produced in his overlay design, and then the usual Bentley News, Connect, Open Forum, and date of time and next meeting. So the usual introductions, I'm not going to go through these again, we just keep those in the slide. So today, really the session is Mark's session today on overlay design, and he's going to cover things such as terrain model, corridor template, point controls, super elevation, overlay vertical adjustments, and corridor reports. And okay, I'm going to leave Mark to it now, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and Mark will go ahead and share his screen. If there's anybody that hasn't muted themselves, please can they mute themselves, and I'll try and mute all of you anyway. Okay. Thanks, Mark. I'll shut up now and let you get on with it. Okay. I can see your screen, so I'm assuming everybody can.
Can you hear me?
Yep, and I can hear you as well. Okay, cheers, Mark.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. So today we're going to see how to design an overlay. To achieve this, first we're going to create a terrain model of the existing carriageway. Second, we are going to create a template and a corridor. Third, we are going to create a super elevation, and last, we're going to create an adjusted profile. After this, we're going to see how we can get the quantities and other informations thanks to the corridor reports here. Okay, so let's get started. So you need two elements for when you need to design an overlay. It will be to get obviously the survey with at least 3 elements. So in this case, you need the edges of pavement, both sides, and the existing center line. That's the minimum you need, and of course an alignment for your project. Once you have everything, the first step would be to create a terrain model of your existing carriageway. To do so, you can go in the terrain, from elements, and select the edges of pavements, both sides. Let's try to find a place where you can see, because here we have the proposed alignment on the top of the existing one. So I'm trying to find a place where we can see the difference. Okay, let's say here. So I select my existing center line. And once I have these 3 elements, I right-click to validate. I select the type of features that they are, so break lines. And in this case, I want to create triangles with a max length of 0. So like this, it will avoid to create triangles outside the carriageway. And I will use the feature definition contours. So like this, we can see the contours of the carriageway. Okay, here it is. So you can see here we have a crown, and in a curve we should have here one slope. Once you have your terrain model, we will focus on the alignment, so the proposed alignment. If I select it here, I want to display the profile, and what I want to do is to use the existing carriageway as a profile for our project. As you can see, at the moment we don't see it in the profile, is because you need to activate your terrain model. So if I select it, I activate it, and then the existing profile will appear in the profile, and I can activate it now. So now my alignment is ready. So I have my horizontal alignment, and I have my profile. I can go to the next steps, which are to create first the template. So I go to corridor, template, and I'm going to create one in the UK standard templates. I right click here, and I can or add a folder or create a new template. I will call it overlay. And in my template, I just need two elements. So the pavement on the left and one on the right. I can use the dynamic settings to do it. As you can see, you have some settings already ready. So you have the point name here, that would be OP for edge of pavement, and a feature definition already set. So this one is edge of pavement. If I right click, I have access to the creation of a new component. It will be constrained by the width and the slope. The first point would be the origin of the template. And if I right click, I can uncheck the close shape because I would just want it to be a normal element. And I will mirror the components, so like this it will create both sides at once. Here I can give it a width and a slope, and enter. Now I have my two sides created. I can just check the points to see if everything is fine. In this case, so the name is fine. In this case, it didn't take the feature definition, so I can go and select it, which should be in template points, pavement, and edge of pavement. Yeah, it's a slope I need, 2% horizontal. And one thing that is important to check is this box for the super elevation flag. It will be used when we will create the super elevation. It's if I don't define this point as a super elevation flag, it won't be able to apply the super elevation to this point. So I need not to forget this. I check the other points. Center line, I want it to be a center line here, and I will change the feature definition to center line. Same thing, super elevation flag. And last point, edge of pavement are the definition is okay, the slopes are okay. I'm ready to go for the corridor. Okay, now that we have alignment, we have our templates. We can select the alignment and create a corridor here within the context menu. We define the active profile as the profile of the corridor. So I right click, I give it a name to the corridor overlay. And the second step will be to create the template drop. Not to we can do it just on a portion of the alignment. We don't need for this presentation. I will do it from 1000 to 3000 with an interval of 10. I don't need any transition, and the template is the one we've just created. So I can just validate the values. And now we can see we have a corridor here. We can have a look at it with the dynamic sections to see if everything is fine in this view. So yes, we can see our existing carriageway, the proposed one, and I can use an exaggeration of the view to make it clearer. Say 5. So like this we have a better view. And as you can see, the proposed carriageway doesn't match with the existing one. So in this case we can use a point control to guide the edge of pavements. We locate a corridor. And as we have already seen several times, we have to set the chain edge for the start. At the end, we can give it a name. So let's start with the right side. And it asks us to select a point in the corridor. So it will be our edge of pavement. The type of say the control we want, so it's an horizontal one because we just want the width to fit the existing, not the slope. We will select a linear geometry, and now we need to select the existing edge of pavement. But in this case, you can see that you get a message invalid plan element. Element has no name. It's because the elements are drawing elements, and you can only use civil elements. If you want to convert them in civil elements, you need to go in the model detailing 3D tools, plan by 3D elements. You have to be sure that you give a feature definition and a name to your elements, and we can start to convert both edges of pavements. I will do the right one here. And then the left side. We don't need to convert the center alignment because we just need those two. And we can check that they have been created in the Explorer, linear geometry. And here we have both of them, so left and right. Now we are ready to create the point controls. We go back here. I validate, I locate the corridor first, validate the stations, the name, and locate my points again, horizontal, linear geometry, and this time you can see I can select the element. I don't want to create a secondary alignment, so I validate, and I don't have any offset. Okay. Now you can see the corridor is going and see the existing edge of pavement, and you have this small square purple object to tell you that your point is controlled now by a point control. We do it on the other side. Left. Same thing, so I select my point in the corridor, horizontal, linear geometry, and I select the existing. And now we have the right width on both sides. So far, nothing really new. Things we've already seen in the past. And so the next step will be to maybe more interesting, to create a super elevation. So the super elevation command tools are here. You have different steps to follow if you want to create a super elevation. The first step will be to create a section. Then in these sections you will have to create lanes, and once you have your lanes you can calculate the super elevation for each lane, and at last you can assign these super elevation lanes and section to the corridor. I will show you two methods to do it. So the first one will be the alignment. So if I hit the button here, I can choose a name for my section. So let's keep it simple. And at this moment, it gives me the choice to select a corridor or an alignment. If you select an alignment, you will go through all the process of creating a section, lanes, and then assign it to the corridor and the calculation. If you select the corridor, it will assign everything to the corridor at once. So just to show you the tool, I will use it for the alignment first. Okay, so if I select my alignment, I can give it, so the sections here, let's follow my corridor, so 1000 to 3000. And here it asks you if what is the minimum terms and length for your sections. To explain it simply, it helps you to create several sections on your alignment. Let's say that you have different options. If you want to create one section all along your alignment, you can give it a really high value like 10,000. If you want to, for instance, to create several sections along your alignment, because for different reasons you can have different design speed, or you want to isolate every curve with a section, you can reduce this value. And basically it means it will check the length of the elements between two curves. If the length of this element is less than this value, it will create a second section. So in this case, if we give it a high value like this one, we avoid this and it will create only one section. Hope it's clear. So yeah, I said I just want one section in this case, so it has created a section for my corridor. And now it starts the command of creating a lane. So you have different options. You can choose if the super elevation will be a primary one or an auxiliary. Primary if it's for your corridor, the main say pavement of your corridor, and auxiliary you can use it if for instance you have a turning line and you need to have a different crossfall on these. In our case, we would use the primary one, so we first need to create one side and the other with the left. So I validate the name, I validate the type, the side, the offset. So if we need to create an offset, and we need to fill the width and the slope. In this case, I will keep the same that what I've done with the template. And once it has been created, you can see here you have this kind of hatch all around. We can create it for the right side, and we change it here. We validate the values, and now we have all lanes on both sides, and we can right click to finish the creation. The last step will be to calculate the super elevation, and so you can choose the rules you want to use. By default, we provide 3 of them for the UK dataset. So you have the H2 and the TD993A for the UK, and also the one user defined. So if you want to create some specification, let's use this one, and we will keep those names. And now we can choose the design speed. We can keep it at 100, and you can choose the pivot method for your super elevation. You can use it as a crown, inside edge, left, center line. So you have different options. We'll keep it as a crown. And then you can also edit your super elevations and see a diagram showing it, how it evolves along the alignment. And you can also edit the values. So I validate it. And at the end, yes, I get this diagram with the values. So it starts at -2% and it goes at 4% in this side, and so on until the end. So you have both sides displayed. And here at the bottom, the table with the values, the different values of the crossfolds along. You can modify them if you want. You can change the type of transition and also the side, the type of pivot. So you have a really the option, the possibility to tweak everything that you need. Okay, and you can see the colors is changing depending on the slope. So here you can see here you have a crown, and then we arrive in a curve, and we get one crossfold. So that's the first method to create a super elevation. Second one, with the corridor, that is much more simple. I will delete this one and recreate another one. Is to do the same thing, so to create a section, and instead select your corridor directly. You will be prompt. You will have to select your rules, the minimum turn of length. So we keep everything the same. We validate. And as you can see, it has created the, let's say, the lanes, and it should have applied it to the corridor. In this case, if we go in a curve to have a better look in this view, let's say in the middle of this one, you can see that it didn't work on this side. It's because we forgot to assign, to check the super elevation flag on this point. So if you can change it by editing the template, select your point, super elevation flag, click on OK. The best way would be to recreate the corridor, super elevation. Okay, the same values. And now we have the super elevation assigned to a corridor. So you can see that seems to be okay. Okay, now our corridor is set. The super elevation is assigned. The next step will be to optimize the profile to design our overlay. Let's have a look at the first chain edge. That is much easier to see. So for the overlay, what we want is to lift our corridor above the existing carriageway. So the technique here is to use this tool, the overlay vertical adjustment, and it will create a profile which is optimized with the different parameters we want to use. So let's say we will create one overlay of 0 millimeters. We want the minimum say thickness at 0 millimeter above the existing carriageway. So we give it the change of the start and the stop. We say that the thickness has to be 0. We can give it a label if you want, and you have two different methods. You can create a minimum overlay or minimum milling. So quite the opposite of overlay, which we will see it after. And here, so you can also define if you want a minimum overlay thickness. Basically, these two values add up. See if you set one here and one there. So, and then you have different options. So you can have a label. You can set a maximum milling. You can, and then you will have to define which points to use for the calculations and how you want the calculation to be done with which points. So you have different options here. So the template range. So if we calculate with the points of the template with the existing linear geometry, so you can also say calculate everything compared to these these linear geometries, and so on, and different options for the calculation. So here all cross section points or just on the template points only. So you have different options and you can choose which one is the best for you. Let's put it in practice. If I select my corridor, I kill this name, so 0, the same chainage, so I want it at 0, normally, and now I need to select the points to take in account in my template. So for the left, edge of pavement left, and for the right, of course, the one on the right, and I validate the other option. Now we can see that a profile has been created in the profile view, and to apply it to a corridor is just enough to set it as active. And you can see that all the corridor here has been lifted until it meets the 0 thickness here at minimum point. So that's quite easy to use. You can also do it if you need to do a milling. So let's give it a try. Same thing. So let's say we want to create a milling of 50 millimeters below the existing ground. You can set a negative value of 50 mil and define it as a milling. So this one. And the rest of the things is pretty much the same. So we select the corridor, validate the name, the values. Same thing, so we select the left, the right points. And here we can see that it has created another profile. And you just need to activate it again to apply it to your corridor. So if we go below and the existing ground, 50 mil at minimum. Okay, for the design, more or less, that's it. It's what you need to do if you want to design an overlay. Now we can see is how to get the quantities out of it. Let's go back with my overlay of 0 on the top. So what I want to have is the quantity of material here between the existing carriageway and my proposed carriageway. What we can do is edit the template. And here we can add a component that will do this for us. We can use the overlay stripping component. Give it a name, let's say volume. And a feature definition, just repwrap, just to have something different from the pavement. And for the options, you need to select on the top. We will follow the component, which are our pavement. At the bottom, the surface, which is the existing carriageway. Activate. Once this is set, we say that we follow those points that we created, and right click and finish. We can test it to see if it works. So you can see when our surface, our terrain is here, we can see all these areas integrated inside the component. So it seems to work. We can close it, save it in the template, and you can see here in the cross section that the component has been created. Once you have it, and to see the quantities, you can just use the corridor reports. At the moment, you have those 5 reports available, and you can use the component quantities to identify your corridor. And here you will get all the different values you have available. So here, this one will be the surface. In this case, it will be the area of the proposed carriageway, and here the volume of material for the overlay. You can also get a report of the super elevation. So if you select it, right click, you will have here all the values. So that's a report for the super elevation. And one thing that I wanted to show you is also if you want to do a milling and you want also to get the quantities, it will be you can use exactly the same process, apart from one thing that you can modify in the template. So here, if we select again our components we've created, so let's say volume, we're going from the top, which is the component, until the bottom, which is the surface. We just need to invert those. So from surface to component. And if we activate the other profile, we will have again the same component going from the existing carriageway until our proposed. And we can also get the quantities. Here, yeah, and also with the volumes. So okay, so more or less it was what I wanted to show you today. So just to sum up what we've seen, we have created a terrain model, so with the from elements. We have created a template, so in corridor template, new template drop. We used the point controls as we've already done it several times. We created a super elevation, so we can see here the different options. You can also, the last one allows you to, instead of selecting the values, you can extract them directly from the road templates, so it will get the width and the slope inside this template. You can use the calculation at the end when you have created your section. You can also edit your super elevation rule files if you need, import them if you already have some existing rules files, and at last assign it to the corridor. You can see here you have also different options. You can insert station cross slope if you need to add more information inside your super elevation. You can edit it and also get the reports here and to get a view of the super elevation. And then we use the overlay vertical adjustment tool. As you can see, it was very easy to use. You have different options that give you a lot of flexibility what you want to do. And finally, for the quantities, how you can use the components inside your template to get different values, and also the way you can use the different reports inside the corridor. That's it for me, Simon.
Great, great. Thank you, Mark. If you want to stop sharing,
Okay.
and I will share out my screen. Let me know when you can see. Okay, so that was a real, yeah, that was a real quick run through of some fairly straightforward overlay design. There's a lot more that you can do. You can make it as complex or as simple as you like, really. But there are techniques available which will replicate what you could do in MX Renew, which was a very popular tool within the side of MX. What I would suggest is when you get the recording, have a run through it, and by all means, ask us any questions that you have in the about this particular work. It's something that many organisations are involved with, and I say Renew was one of the best sold, best used products that MX had over the past years. And I say it's something we get asked quite regularly for people thinking about moving to OpenRose Designer. How do you do overlay work? Well, that's a simple idea of what you can do. So what I wanted to show, which is not unrelated, one of the things that people want out of the back end of their overlay work are some drawings, and we do get asked reasonably often, how easy is it to produce a simple set of drawings? So I'm going to show, hopefully, that it's actually not that complicated to create some fairly straightforward drawings. Again, it's something that you can add as much detail as you like to, or as little detail as you like to. But what I wanted to show today is how to just create some plan, profile, and cross-section drawings. One thing we are considering is to do a much more detailed, deeper dive into these drawings for the next webinar. I'm going to take a straw poll when I send out the email and see what people would like for the next webinar. But anyway, enough of that. So what I'll quickly show, this again is based on Mark's design that he did earlier. I have, for simplicity, I've turned off the display of the ground surface, just to make it a bit more obvious, but it will be picked up on all the design, all the work anyway. So what we have here is just the same multi-model view that Mark had, and I'm quickly going to show you how to create a set of plans, profiles, and cross sections. You can either do it through the OpenRose Modeling Drawing Production tab here, but also it's available on the Drawing Production tab here as well. What we've used for creating our sheets is something called a named boundary. Some of you may have heard of named boundaries, others may not. And the named boundary is actually placed in the model, and it's depending on what sort of named boundary you place, depends on what sort of drawing you get. So if we go into the named boundary dialog, you can see we have civil plan by element, profile, and civil cross sections, and various other ones as well. I'm just going to use the civil plan and just to create some simple plans here. So again, there's a lot more detail in here that you can play with if you want, and we intend on producing those at a later date, another webinar on detailed drawing production. But as I say, this is just to get some quick and dirty drawings out from a design you've done. So the seed file, first off, as I say, there are several that we supply in our workspaces. And this is just a simple A1 plan. I'm going to leave the scale at 1 to 500. It's got a name there that I typed in earlier. We then go ahead and just pick our alignment. So the name is regress. This is the one that Mark had done already. and then we can pick our start and end chainages, and we can lock to the start and end if we want. I'm probably not going to do it in this case because I just want to do a little section of it, so let's not lock the start and end. So we'll start here and just run them through a short length. Oh, sorry, hang on a second. Let me just go through that again. Name boundary, uncheck start and stop location, and pick our reference string, which we should have already picked, and start location here and end location somewhere down here. And once we're happy with that, I'm going to make it give it a bit of an overlap as well of 10 meters, and we can go straight through to the create dialog drawing, or we can just create the name boundaries. So if I click on there, it creates me my named boundaries. This is the create drawing dialog, and we can change various bits and pieces in here. Obviously the seed models read only. Our annotation group we can change as well, various scales and text scales, sheet model scales, etc. we can change as well. But as I say, I'm just going to create some quick and dirty sections. OK on that, and it runs through and creates us a set of sections. We've got the boundary and the frame come from our seed file, and this is just a standard one that we supply, but of course you can customize the seed file to create your own. And if we just scroll through, you'll see I'd switch the ground model off, haven't I? So it doesn't produce what the ground produces the ground model as well. But as I say, if I turn the ground model back on, the terrain back on, then that will appear in the drawings as well. So we have a sheet view and a plan view, a sheet view and a drawing view. The drawing view is simply used as a reference, and if we want to, we can add some additional model information. These come from something called annotation groups, which again are customizable to the nth degree. I'm just going to put some plan annotation on this particular sheet, and hopefully, yeah, we can see we've got a bit of extra annotation on here for chainages, etc., etc. And because it's referenced in, we go back to our sheet view, and the annotation comes through automatically. As I say, the annotation, the information in the frames can all be customized. But as I say, we've only got 10 minutes or so to show some quick drawings today. So that's effectively how we produce our plans. If I go back to my multi-model view, we can have a look at creating some profiles now. As I say, the only thing I forgot was to turn back on the ground model. It'll cut through whatever's in the DGN. But if I turn the ground model, the ground terrain back on, it would show that on the drawing as well. Next thing I wanted to show, next name boundary, is for profiles. Again, a drawing seed file. There's several of them that we have in the UK workspace. And again, I'm going to leave the scale as it is, and I'm going to pick Mark's overlay that he designed there, and start location and stop location, end location. Had it picked it? Might not have picked it. There we go. I think that's it. And end location. And again, we can give a length or vertical exaggeration. So I click on the drawing, and it shows me where it's going to create my named boundaries. And if I want to accept that, I just data point again to accept it. It all looks fine for me. As I say, I can fiddle around with individual name boundaries if I wish, and various clearances and what have you, but I'm not going to in this case. I'm just going to create my name boundaries, and again it comes through to the create drawing sheet, which allows us to change any annotation groups that we want to, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to hit OK on that, and it should go away and create us a simple cross section, again with a sheet view and a model view. And if I wanted to add any further model information, let's see what else can we add. I'm not sure what named groups I've got here. This dialog here is all drawing models. You can toggle it so it annotates all the sheets, all the models that we've got. Okay, all the sheets that we've got. I'm just going to annotate this one for a speed purpose, really, and I'm going to change it to framed profile. And let's see what we've got in framed profile. Oh yeah, that's the one that produces station elevations, height differences, and the horizontal and vertical curve information as well. The only thing I can see here is when I go back to the sheet view, what sheet was that, 15? When I go back to the sheet view, I think we're going to have some spacing issues, so it might overlap the drawing frame a little bit. So as I say, you need to go back and have depending on what annotation you're putting in, will depend on the vertical and vertical offsets from the bottom of the frame. So all these things are customizable and changeable, and it's reasonably quick. The annotation groups are something that you can set up in your DGN lib, which is then copied through as you use them to your to the active DGN, and they say really that's an administration process that you do only once, so you'd set up your annotation group exactly how you'd want them, and then be able to use them ad infinitum. As I say, hopefully it's something we're going to show at a future webinar, is a little bit more on drawing annotation. And the final drawings that obviously we want to see are our cross sections. So again, named boundaries, place a named boundary. One gotcha for this one is that if you're using cross sections, you have to have a 3D model active as well. If you don't, it will warn you and say cannot create them for a 2D plan drawing. So just be aware of that. So I've got a 3D model open here as well. And again, there's a frame annotation seed file, and there's not. I'm going to leave everything as default. Name, pick up center line, and again, I'm just going to pick some arbitrary locations. I'm not going to do too many because it is a little bit time consuming. I tell you what I am going to do though. I'm going to change the interval to 100, so we have less sections, and you see it indicates on here, and I think it indicates on the 3D view as well, where the sections are going to be cut. As I say, you can play around with top and bottom clearances depending on the size of the section, size of the frame, seed file, etc., etc., and left and right offsets. We might want to put bigger offsets in here. You never know. You know, it's entirely up to you. So again, data point to actually create the named boundaries. So these are now proper named boundaries, and through to our favorite create drawing dialog. Again, you can mess around with these to your heart's content. It tells you what annotation group you've got. I'm just going to click OK on this, and it processes through, and hopefully it will create my section drawings. Here we go. As you can see, it's doing quite a bit of work here, so it does take a little bit of time. Yeah, I've got to play around with some of the sizes, but you get the idea as to what it is it will create on our drawings here. And again, you have a model view and a sheet view, so you'll have a model view for each individual section, but it will try to fit as many sections on a particular sheet as it can, given the constraints that you've given it. All those who remember your own old draw input files to do cross sections, you know, this is the kind of thing it's doing. And again, you can add further model information if you want. In this case, it looks like it's got pretty much everything you'd want on it. But we can change. We can add whatever we've got in our annotation group if we wish. So back to our multi-model view. I think that's all I'm going to show. We're getting close to the top of the hour, and we promise we'd try and keep these to an hour minimum. And I've got a few bits of news to mention as well. So that's just, from my perspective, a quick run through of how to create plan, profile, and section drawings. As I've said, you can spend a long time setting up exactly how you want your drawings to be produced, and I know certain organisations have already. They've got their own seed files, they've got their own annotation groups, and they've spent a lot of time working on this. But if you want just some standard drawings out, it's fairly straightforward. The process is fairly straightforward to do. The other good thing about this is, now we've created our name boundaries, we have a plan group name boundaries, we have a profile group name boundaries, and we have a cross-section group name boundaries. And these are valid now for the duration of this particular design file. So, for example, if you go in and you change something, you can just rerun your name boundaries, and it will recreate the drawings for you. Hating to say it, but it's a little bit like running an input file inside of your old MX. So these are valid, and you can rerun them whenever you change the design and get your drawings out exactly the same format, just with the updated design. So really handy name boundaries, and they're used not only here but in other parts of the product as well. So as I say, and you can have as many as you like as well, and you can, if you've got more than one piece of geometry, you obviously will have more than one set of name boundaries. And just in the cross sections area, it's also worth noting that you can put in special changes as well by adding another cross section group, and this option here allows you to do skew cross sections as well. As I say, I think this is something that we'll go to in a bit more detail in another webinar. Okay, so as far as the technical presentations go, that's us done. Mark's had a really good run through of overlay design, and I've covered some really basic, and I want to stress those are basic drawing tools inside of OpenRose Designer. Just wanted to mention a couple of bits of news. I think these were on the ones that Bentley are attending. There's the Hawk conference in Manchester in May, and then in November there's the Roads for Modern Britain conference. And it's also worth pointing out, Year in Infrastructure this year is going to be in Singapore. If you've got any useful or any interesting schemes that you want to present, then get in touch, and we can you can get them entered into the Year in Infrastructure competition. Always a good thing to try and enter. I always mention training, streaming on the Learn server, and you can also contact us about regular distance learning that our consultants carry out. I'm not sure exactly what's planned for this month, but I'm sure there's something ongoing. Product updates. There's something to comment on this month. Version 10.07, update 7, or update 2019 update 1, I think we're calling it now, is available now. It was released Monday, I believe, April the 1st. Don't take that too literally though. And not only is that the latest version of OpenRose Designer, next webinar we'll go through a bit more about what's included in it, but it also includes our new Open Site Designer product as well, which is specifically tailored for site design work. If people are interested, we can set up a session to look at Open Site Designer, but it's quite a new product, and Mark and I are still getting our heads around Open Site Designer as well. So as far as product updates and releases that goes, I think hopefully in the next webinar we'll have a little bit more time to cover what was included in update 2019 update 1, so the 10.07 version. Just as a heads up, we've been trying to do quarterly releases in the past couple of years. I think we're going to produce less releases, but more tailored releases for you. We're still finding out the details of that, so there probably won't be a Q2 release this year. But hopefully we'll have more news for that at the next webinar. I keep going on about it, but the Bentley UK Twitter account at Bentley UKI is regularly updated. And as I say, if we keep numbers up, we may potentially look at doing a mini conference later in the year. So as far as the next session goes, well, of course, I know we're right near the top of the hour and we want to keep it at the hour because we know people are on their lunch break, but any questions, by all means, email myself or Mark. I'm going to do a straw poll on what we're going to produce for the April session. I've had a lot of interest in seeing a bit more in depth about drawing production, which is a little bit of what I've just showed, and we can easily go on for an hour on drawing production. The schedule was to do roundabouts, and we're happy to do roundabouts, but we think that maybe the drawing production side of things might be a little bit more beneficial. But as I say, what I'll do is when I send out the links to recordings, I'll do a little bit of a straw poll as well and ask people what they think, and you can let me know. The last email out, I also included the data as well. Hopefully people found that useful as well. So Mark and I will include the data that is associated with this work as well. It only remains for me to say thank you for attending yet again. I think considering we've got a couple of offices online as well, so we're up over 50 attendees yet again. But as I say, I know I did have a few apologies after the reschedule for last week. So we definitely won't be rescheduling the April one, he says. So the 25th of April, we will be doing roundabouts or maybe drawing production, depending on what the feedback. If we do end up doing drawing production, we'll just push the roundabouts back by a month to the May one. Okay, so thanks for attending. Any questions, of course, you have our contact details there. Please get in touch with us, and we're always happy to field questions. And remember, if you've got a technical issue, log a service request and it'll get picked up by us. Okay, I think that's the end of it for me. So I will stop the recording now and get that out to you in the next couple of days or so. And have a good afternoon and rest of the week, everybody.